when you think about tourism and business, people sometimes with any big event, they may come to the destination and not technically go to the actual event. They may come to be a part of maybe some of the ancillary things that go on. And I think that, you mentioned World Cup, but let's just say any big event that may go on in whatever destination, you constantly have to prepare yourself for the opportunity to get business.
Welcome to Thrive, a Paychex business podcast, your blueprint for navigating everything from people to policies to profits. And now your host, Gene Marks.
Hey everybody, it's G Marks and welcome back to another episode of the Paychex THRIVE Podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and I am thrilled to have Connie Kinnard here with us today. She is the Senior VP of Multicultural Tourism and Development at Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. So Connie, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. And what's the weather like in Miami today?
The weather is beautiful. It's warm. It's almost always warm in Miami. Beautiful day.
It's a great city. Yeah, it's a great city. Yeah, you were telling me before we started recording, so you're originally from Nashville and then took this job in Miami. Tell me that story.
I am. I'm from the Nashville area and happy to be here now in Miami for going on 11 years. Miami at the time, and we're going to be talking about small business and community and development and big events. But at that time, around 11 years ago, the Miami Convention Bureau wanted to amplify its efforts in connecting with the community, connecting with events, businesses to further engage and amplify that connection to tourism. And so they developed a department called Multicultural Tourism, which kind of really has several levels. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But I got a call in Nashville. I was at the Convention and Visitors Bureau there, had worked there for 19 years. And got that call about this opportunity, and here I am, and have just enjoyed the journey thus far.
What's different about the scene in Nashville compared to Miami? I'm curious. You're there for 19 years in Nashville. I didn't realize that. How does it differ?
It's what all cities have their assets, the things that make them unique. And as a Convention and Visitors Bureau, a DMO, some of the things we do are to amplify those things, bring those things out and encourage visitors to come and for our residents to enjoy and experience. I think, Nashville is a music mecca. Country music is one of the big things, but also it has a lot of layers of other things related to the music scene. And so for Nashville, part of the lens of the tourism piece really probably 65% centered around music and what comes from that, which is a great brand to have. And so they've done very well. In Miami is different and unique. And what I love is that there's so many cultures here, so many different facets and layers and levels to Miami that, our way of promoting our destination, we promote through the lens of music as well, but we also promote through the lens of culture, through art, through our wonderful weather and water. People like to come and things that surround that. And then, of course, our businesses that are here as well. So I think they're both wonderful cities. Miami's just a different. We're so close to Latin America and the Caribbean as well that the vibe here has that international feel, but yet we're still in the U.S.
We're going to talk about the World Cup in just a minute because that's obviously a huge event that's coming to your city. But before I jump into that, I've always found when I see visitors, bureaus, convention bureaus in different cities, and most larger cities have them, that they tend to get underused. Like the level of awareness to businesses in the community is never as high as I would imagine. And yet I know that your Convention and Visitors Bureau does provide services and help for your local small businesses. And I'm just kind of curious, say you were speaking our audience is around the country.
Right.
So, say you're with a visitors bureau in any city in the, in the country, and you can focus on Miami too.
Sure.
What would you tell like the local business community, to be like, here's how you should be taking advantage of your local convention and visitors bureau?
Right. Convention and visitors bureaus, they're known as DMOs, destination management marketing organizations, management or marketing, depending, are really behind the scenes entities in a way, because a lot of the events and the activities that go on in a destination, we're a part of in some way. And sometimes people don't realize that there's an engine behind doing that. And so many times, because they are not familiar with the engine, it gets underutilized. To your point, people don't realize that there's help and there are entities that can kind of help connect the dots. And so I would tell people, small businesses, if you have anything, particularly we're talking DMOs related to tourism. And we always talk about businesses that directly or indirectly affect tourism, because the businesses like a restaurant or like a tour company, well, we know hotels, of course, we know those are tourism related, but also there are other businesses that could also benefit from tourism. So don't be scared to connect with your Convention and Visitors Bureau to see what's going on. Are there opportunities for partnership? Are there any programs that help the business community connect better with tourism? Every convention bureau is different, so that could look different in your destination from what we'll talk about today in Miami, but definitely connect those dots.
All right, that's great advice. All right, so let's talk about Miami and let's talk about the World Cup coming to the city. Now we have the same thing coming to Philly as well. So, it's a big deal. And particularly Miami, just, like you said, multicultural, a huge population.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting? What, how do you think this is going to be impacting the city this summer? What are you preparing for?
That's right. So, we know that people will be traveling all over. People, when they're coming, and particularly international, come to spend time in the various locations in the U.S. and in Miami. So it's not just a day trip or a 2-day trip. It is a trip that people will spend a few days, because in addition to just being here for the matches, they want to be in the destination. And when you think about tourism and business, people sometimes, with any big event, they may come to the destination and not technically go to the actual event. They may come to be a part of maybe some of the ancillary things that go on. And I think that, you mentioned World Cup, but let's just say any big event that may go on in whatever destination, you constantly have to prepare yourself for the opportunity to get business. And what you mentioned maybe what we're doing, how we're preparing. From the Convention Bureau standpoint, we have an area that's called Tourism Business Enhancement, in which we work with our community 365, our businesses, on capacity building. And we actually, host programming from how to market, how to, legal advice, how to do anything really related to your small business. Because what we feel is this: when these big events come, you have to already be in the process of being ready, because things move fast. And so we try to prepare the businesses, whether it's FIFA World Cup or whether it's a Super Bowl that may come in the future, or whether it's some large music festival, wherever. You kind of have to be ready in advance, so that when you hear about these things, you're ready to pivot. Yeah.
If you're a business owner and you're always looking for more work, and you mentioned as well that there's indirect work that can be gotten, from an influx of tourists. And you also mentioned that it's not just the World Cup; it could be any big event in your city, like the Super Bowl or anything like that.
That's right.
would you say to business owners to prepare themselves for an influx of visitors into the city, particularly if it can benefit, even indirectly their business? What should they be doing? Like the business in Miami right now, we've got the World Cup is coming. It's not till the summer. What should they be doing like right now to make sure that they're prepared?
So, of course, depending on the type of business, there's certain businesses just realistic that will get your restaurants that are in the perimeters of where people are, like for Miami, in the perimeters of the downtown, and the perimeters of the Miami Gardens, in the areas. Make sure that on your social media that you work with some marketing and media folks, that search amplifications are there, search taggings are there when people are looking for certain things, tours. Make sure all those things connect. So if somebody is doing a search, it's likely that your search will rise to the top. I do think it's very important. You mentioned, what would a person be doing now? So we're in April. So there's social media and things of that nature. But I want to backtrack a little bit, because we're talking about Miami, but I know that this will touch other businesses all over. It's very key that when you see the press release 2 years ago that says XYZ has been booked in your destination, it's very important that at that point you start doing your homework, your research on who the players are, decision makers, partners in these events, and to start. And I tell our businesses, and we talk old school relationships, start those relationships there. Then, because honestly, people, do business with people they know. So it's good to get started at that point. Where we are today, don't get me wrong, there's plenty that a business can do for social and things of that nature to amplify. But a lot of this really has to be done prior. And at this point, it's almost like you're ready in mode to receive.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the planning is so important. I also liked your point earlier about just updating your social profiles. I mean, think about you and I when we visit another city, when we're a tourist and we're looking for someplace to eat, or even to, I don't know, buy a sweatshirt on a cool night.
That's right.
We're on our phones searching as what's nearby. Or, you know what I mean? Like, that's what tourists do. And if you're a business owner, this is like a real incentive for you to make sure that your social, listings, whether it's on Google reviews or on Yelp, Facebook, where people search, is up to date and ready to go and current with information, right? I mean, that's super important to do now.
Absolutely. I mean, I would encourage a business to go online. Sometimes you have to also get your stakeholders to even, like, maybe even say, hey, go online, search my venue or my business. What comes up? Chat GPT, put me in Chat GPT. What comes up from that standpoint? And then from there, if you see the things that maybe shouldn't come up, or you rather it maximize more, go into your website and change those things, and then start seeing how your searches take place. And you said something that's very key. You think about it. FIFA World Cup or an event, international travel. The travelers have started their planning probably a year ago, 6 months. Even domestic travel, if you think about how an individual would plan a trip, they're looking in advance for these things. Even restaurants, of course, sometimes when you get in a destination, you do quick searches, but you do some of that pre-homework. And so I would encourage people to make sure things are up to date, make sure their search options are maximized online, because people are planning, and you don't want to miss out because you waited too close into an event coming in to do the things that you needed to do when people have already been online making decisions 6 months ago.
Connie, how about security? I mean, you're having a lot of visitors. Obviously that could have an impact on, potential incidents or crime. Soccer fans are very passionate about what they
Mm-hmm.
follow, and, sometimes fights break out and all of that. Do you give any advice to your business owner, your community about making sure that they're safe?
I think we're a big city destination, if you will, or a known destination, Miami, just like any other destination. People have to just pay attention these days. There's no place that's totally free from events that happen like that. I think that we all have to just be smart. I would encourage, businesses, small or large or whatever kind of business that interfaces with community and with visitors. You have to do those things depending on your business, because things are a little different, that will bring value to a visitor coming, that could be a level of assurity or security if a visitor came, that they could feel pretty confident that it's a space that they could be in. What does it look like for your business? I can't totally say, not sure. Is it security? Maybe. Is it just having lights and places lit up around your venue? Maybe. Whatever that is. But I always think that security, safety is something that a business should think about.
Makes sense. It makes complete sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have visitors here that come. I don't even know I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't know the specific matches that are being played in Miami, like what countries they're coming from. Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah. Don't. I have them, but don't. Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Let me.
The reason why I'm asking the question though is that it also seems like a real tailoring in your marketing approach as well. If you have teams coming from a certain country or speaking a certain language, it seems, businesses might want to think ahead about, hey, maybe we should be hanging their flags outside, or maybe we should, hire somebody that, speaks that language, or maybe our online, promotions that we're doing should be in that native language as well, so that people, can feel more welcome if they belong there. Do you know if businesses are doing things like that, like tailoring their approach?
Right. So that's an interesting question. So twofold. One of the things that we do and believe in how we promote our destination is that we promote, everybody is interested in certain things, art and culture, and all the things. So we promote it kind of in this holistic way from a destination, from a Convention and Visitors Bureau. For Miami specifically, what you mentioned is one of the unique things about Miami. So earlier in this talk, you asked me the difference between Nashville and Miami and promoting and things like that based upon my history. All of the countries, and I don't have everything on top of mind, so I don't want to misquote on that. But when you think about Miami's demographic, the diaspora and the cultures here, to be honest with you, those cultures are here. So whether it's Latin America, whether it's our Haitian community, whether it's, from Africa, Jamaica, so many diverse languages are already here. The culture and the multiculturalism here is very strong. So to your point, yes, I know businesses, of course, we try to tailor to certain countries and languages, and, even on our website, you can see it in a certain language. But Miami as a destination, based upon even the matches that are here, the language is so diverse and bilingual already that, it's kind of almost an organic thing for us, that we're already kind of ready in certain areas for the international travel.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that too, because that's where you're so different from Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, we're a diverse city, but nowhere near as diverse as Miami is.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe when teams come here that there will be a real advantage for local businesses in my city to really try and make themselves stand out by doing things in native languages and hanging flags and all that kind of stuff. Because I think it'll make them stand out, So.
Right. And it also makes the visitor feel at home and welcome, although they're not in their home country. when you do those things, then it makes them feel welcome and also makes them maybe want to come back even after the FIFA World Cup, for another event. So those things are very important.
I love that. Connie, so the World Cup is a fairly unique event, coming to the U.S. I mean, but Miami is no stranger to, hosting big events. The city's hosted the Super Bowl before and other large events. But is this one how different is this event compared to some of the others that you've been involved in the past?
Mm-hmm. I think, just the fact that it's a Miami, but it's also a U.S. thing. Other cities in this whole makes this be very unique. In some ways, it feels like, we're all working together to make sure that this works, if that makes sense. So I think that's the case. And that, when we say, for instance, we've hosted Super Bowls before, as you mentioned. Well, it's Miami's year for a Super Bowl, so you have that. But now we're talking to other cities like Philadelphia and Houston, some of the other cities that have matches, sharing information, how is your city doing and all those things. So this one it's almost like just because it's a collective group of destinations, it makes it be a little different. And, as I mentioned, behind the scenes, getting these events is a thing. And so just knowing as a U.S. that we were able to get these matches, these games here is different from, like, as you mentioned, a Super Bowl specifically, because that's specific to our destination. This is a bigger platform.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So are you coordinating at all with other, your sort of colleagues or other similar people in convention and visitors bureaus in the other cities that are hosting the World Cup? And again, is that a potential opportunity for any businesses as well, where they can reach customers that not necessarily might be in Miami, but because they're connected to the World Cup experience, find customers in other cities?
Mm-hmm. So a couple of things, how we work, and this is another kind of maybe an education to the listeners on convention bureaus. A lot of them, including ours, we have a sports department. So there is various levels. Multicultural tourism, we connect with businesses. We have our sports tourism department that also is a layer of this. We have conventions that also is a layer. So I say that to say any business that may connect with their convention bureau, just to remember there are a lot of different areas and facets of connection points for a business. So to your question about connecting with other bureaus, I know that our sports as they have been such an integral part of the whole FIFA, getting it here, the booking it, have been in touch with other destinations. Of course, our focus is ours, but, it's something so big that I know that there's been, other collaboration. And then to your point about connecting with FIFA from a broader stance of other opportunities. So there's FIFA, the national organization of FIFA. And then when a destination has some games in their destination, there is a host city committee or a host committee in the various destinations. So yes, there are opportunities to connect from a national level. Now it's harder nationally because the national committee also already has some partners, right? It's a national organization. Sure. But on a local level, they also have these host committees that kind of engage more with the community where they are. So businesses should, going back to finding out when I say the players, who are the key stakeholders in this, a business should find that out as early as possible. To make sure that they're connected. And that could include the local host committee. Most of the big events, particularly sporting events, a lot of them do have a local host committee. FIFA does, as well as sometimes some of the other big events.
Got it. And what will you be doing during the World Cup? I mean, you're not taking time off, I'm assuming.
Well, I think from a standpoint of me and the Bureau and all, we always, when we know that something this big is in our destination, we're ready, we're here. We could get a call to need to help do something or another. So we're kind of around, and I think everybody's excited to see what it will bring during kind of our month of time, which is basically for Miami kind of mid-June through mid-July, the time frame, what that time frame will bring and things of that nature. So, we're excited. We're always excited when we know visitors will be coming to our destination.
That's great. So just to recap this, though, let's talk to your local business owners in Miami, okay? And anybody else that's watching or listening to this that's in a city where World Cup matches are coming. Still a little bit of time, okay? I mean, we're still by the time this airs, we're still a good month away. What's some takeaway advice that you could have for these business owners to last minute? What can they do to maybe capitalize on this World Cup event?
I would say a couple of things. So I'll go back to making sure that from a social media, Instagram, all the platforms for social, that they're updated and they have what I call some buzz about them, because of when just like anybody, if you're online and you're looking and you're trying to make a decision about where to go, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, tour company, whether it's where I'm going to get my hair done while I'm, in the destination. And that goes back to their businesses that are directly tourism, and then the indirect businesses that could, if you market correctly, you could then all of a sudden be a business that people may want to do when they come here. Like, in other words, you come here and you need to do something that you couldn't do while you were home, but you need to do it here. So you can be a part of that tourism piece. I would say make sure those things are updated. They have buzz. You have to be careful with these big events, even with FIFA, from saying, this is the FIFA, this or that. You can't just drop the name FIFA, that easily. You have to be kind of creative so that you won't infringe upon naming, but just make sure everything is updated and attractive to somebody trying to make a decision. The other thing I would say, if you know that you're a business that really could be touched because, maybe you're in the mix of where traffic will be. You're near the airport, you're near a port, or you're near, like here in Miami and other places. Make sure that from a capacity standpoint, you can handle the business that you may get. Because you do remember that people, they're here for this, but they may come back again. They may tell other people. So, you want to be ready from a capacity standpoint as well for the visitors. Don't do all the marketing and all those great things, and people are excited about your place, but then you get there and then from a capacity standpoint, you can't really fulfill. You don't have enough people and things of that nature. So have your backup plan ready. Have your employees ready that you may need to call in case capacity gets busy. So what does that look like for whatever your business is?
Connie, I got to tell you, I mean, again, being from Philadelphia, and I know there's other cities that are hosting World Cup events, I do have to say, Miami is probably the coolest place to go to see a World Cup match. So I just envision both the local and fans and the visitors. I feel like there's just going to be an extra level of passion there. So I'm excited for you. I think it's a great event, and it's great stuff. So thanks for all you do. And thanks for joining me. It's a great conversation.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. Thanks so much.
Sure thing. Everyone, Connie Kinnard is the Senior VP of Multicultural Tourism and Development at the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. We want to thank Connie for joining us today. It is a great conversation, and wishing Miami and all the other cities hosting the World Cup and the business owners there to have a very successful summer doing just that.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you would like to hear on Thrive? Please let us know. Visit payx.me/Thrive Topics and send us your ideas or matters of interest. Also, if your business is looking to simplify your HR, payroll, benefits, or insurance services, see how Paychex can help. Visit the resource hub at paychex.com/works. That's WORX. Paychex can help manage those complexities while you focus on all the ways you want your business to thrive. I'm your host, Gene Marks, and thanks for joining us. Till next time, take care.
This podcast is property of Paychex Incorporated 2026, all rights reserved.